welcome everybody to tonight's Innovation in Motion. I will be the moderator tonight, so Kevin unfortunately couldn't be here, so I will be filling in. So big shoes to fill, I know, but thanks everybody for coming out. My name is Troy O'Brien. I am the president of Response Capture. We're a demand generation agency, so very familiar with this topic and excited to hear from our two experts here today. Innovation in Motion, for those that are new, it's a panel monthly meetup focused on innovation and interactive marketing. So every month there'll be a different topic, and we'll talk about some of the other topics that we have coming up. So today's topic is about automation. Are we working too hard? And so we'll go through, have two expert folks up here. We'll go through some questions at the end, but please make this interactive dialogue. Today's sponsors, I just want to thank Crowd Compass, Technology Association of Oregon. We have Skip here from there to talk a bit about upcoming events. CorSource, been a great help, and then Puppet Labs, of course. So the food and everything, these are provided by these sponsors, so we thank them very much for helping us put on today's event. Skip, did you want to talk about some of the upcoming events?
My name is Skip Newberry. I'm president of the Technology Association of Oregon. Again, thank you to Troy for stepping in and replacing Kevin for the evening. You're in fantastic hands with Troy. Also wanted to thank our panelists tonight. Troy is also the chair of the Technology Association of Oregon's Sales and Marketing Leadership Exchange as well, so he wears multiple hats. A couple of events that are coming up for this particular Forum for Innovation in Motion. December 12th, we have Brad Peters, who's the CEO of Burst. He's going to be coming up out of the Bay Area. That should be a fantastic one. And then also we have a launch event that we're doing December 5th. We just moved into new space at the East Side Exchange at the Burnside Bridgehead. We'll be doing some events over there as well in the future. We're going to do a big party, mingle and jingle, December 5th. So we invite you all to check it out. We've got a lot of information up on the new website, which we'll be launching later this week. So without further ado, I want to have the panelists take it away. Troy?
Thank you, Skip. So for those that into the social media stuff, hashtag is InPDX. You can live stream this at livestream.com/innovationinmotion. And if you ever need video help, Paul is the guy to talk to. So please see him afterwards. He does a great job, volunteers his time. So we really appreciate you doing this, Paul. Panelists today. So we have Atri Chatterjee from Act On. He's the CMO, and also Hal Newton from PageMutant. So both of these guys will be sharing with us their expertise in marketing innovation. I'll let you guys both do a brief introduction of yourselves, though.
You want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Atri Chatterjee. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Act On Software. Act On is actually headquartered here in Beaverton, for those of you who don't know. I'm actually based in San Francisco, but we have 3 offices. Headquarters is here in Beaverton. We've got an office in the San Mateo area, which is just near the San Francisco airport, and in Sacramento, California. So we have 3 West Coast locations, which are the main locations for the company. The tagline for Act On is we do marketing automation for the Fortune 5 million. Oh, this is not working.
It looks good, though.
Yeah, looks good. I got a lot of things on here. These glasses and yeah, a lot of technology here. Okay. I was talking about Act On. Can you guys hear me now? Better? Okay. I can also shout. I'm actually pretty good with my voice. I was just saying that Act On is actually a Beaverton, Oregon headquartered company, and our tagline is we do marketing automation for the Fortune 5 million. So we really aim at small and mid-sized companies. Too often in the software industry and the technology industry, everyone goes after the enterprise, and there are only like 4,000 or 5,000 companies that are enterprise class companies in North America, but there are hundreds of thousands that are small and mid-sized businesses. So that's who we aim for. And everything that we've built has been with that design center of going after the mid-market and the smaller, small marketing teams is essentially how we define it. We've grown quite a bit. We've got probably 60 or 70 people here in our Beaverton office. Overall, the company has about 240 people. Started in 2008 and has grown very rapidly. And thanks a lot to I think, the support and the talent we've been able to hire here in the Oregon area. So that's Act-On in a nutshell.
Hal? Jumping around. So I've been in Portland 9 years. We'll be able to tap into a lot of the marketing automation experience I've had. I've been dealing with these tools and systems for, like, in a hardcore way for about 6 years now. Some of that experience, a lot of it was picked up client side, so I was running marketing for a division of Planar Systems, which is a public company out in Beaverton, and then also I was the first marketing employee here at Puppet, so kind of seen a lot of the growth there. Since then, I've been doing consulting around marketing automation and demand gen, so some of the clients up there, everybody from Crowd Compass, who's one of our sponsors, to some of the others that you see there, including Sodexis. Typical profile is a B2B tech-ish company that has raised money or about to. They're struggling with how to make their sales and marketing systems more automated and more measurable. And so I kind of come in either as a Band-Aid or a medium-term solution to help them get through some of those growth pains. But I'm also, in addition to the consulting, working as a founder for PageMutant, which is something that I've created and actually am building myself. The solution for PageMutant, think of it as almost like SurveyMonkey for doing landing pages, but really it's targeted at marketers and agencies and trying to give them those superpowers to make experiments a lot easier than they are today. There are a lot of A/B split testing solutions. We're not exclusively focused on that, and it's really more about how do you handle these things like landing pages or buttons or display ads in more of a programmatic way. So if you want to generate one landing page, there are a lot of solutions out there to do that. But if you want to handle 10, 20,000 of them, we're able to kind of handle that via Excel and some other means. So for the agencies, if you're familiar with AdWords Editor, think of it almost like AdWords Editor for managing landing pages. And since some of you out there are using marketing automation tools, it's a total complement to those systems, so I'm not trying to replace your existing infrastructure. You can actually use your Marketo form, Pardot form, Salesforce web to lead code, and the information will pass right through. And unlike some of those systems who don't have responsive or mobile landing pages, you can use our templates and use your Marketo form in order to get a responsive landing page at that point. So the main point is we're getting early users, and some of you have already signed up for the beta, so I welcome more of that. And if anybody's kind of struggling with landing pages or testing, very interested in talking to you and hearing more about what you're struggling with.
Excellent. So thank you both. I'm glad you're both here. So just starting at the high level, though, let's just start. What really is marketing automation? So Atri, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. So the one thing that a lot of people confuse marketing automation with is somehow it's going to automate and replace people. That's not what it is. So it's, in fact, not too long back, we had some potential investors asking us, so now that you're going to automate all this, how many people are you going to replace? And we said, no, that's not what's going to happen. The best way to think about it is marketing automation is the study or the science of really how do you build multi-channel campaigns, how do you measure those campaigns, and how do you make them more efficient. So it's really about taking and executing multi-channel campaigns and doing everything that you need to do to plan them, design them, build them, and measure their success. The other thing that I've avoided saying is that it's not about just bringing in leads. So it's not just lead to revenue. It's the whole concept of being able to use it throughout the customer lifecycle. As a marketer, most of us know that we need to be involved in the entire customer lifecycle, not just in bringing in a customer and making them into a customer, bringing in a prospect and making it a customer, but also it's the acquisition of customers, it's about the retention of customers and the expansion of those customers.
Excellent. So what would you say, what's the key thing that marketing automation solves then? If it's not replacing employees, what is it?
Well, really, it's about, as I said, it's really this, it's really a science of building and executing better campaigns and better marketing programs. So one of the things that we've not been able to do in marketing for many, many years has been the ability to plan, execute, and measure marketing campaigns effectively. So back in the consumer world, for those of us who've been involved in direct response, which was sort of the precursor to all of this, you could measure things, and you had things like recency and frequency and monetary measurements, etc. But that was a very small slice of marketers who did that stuff. aimed primarily at the business to consumer direct response marketing. Think of it as direct marketing, okay? Take those concepts and expand them to not only business to consumer, but business to business functions, and talk about, basically creating a whole curriculum of capabilities where you can execute those, measure them, and directly look at contribution of revenue and contribution of customer success. None of this stuff involves the same people who do marketing will still need to be able to do these things. It doesn't replace the human being from doing the thinking. It doesn't replace the creation of great content. It doesn't replace the analysis of information, because it's going to create a lot of data, but you still need someone who analyzes that. So the marketer is still involved in all of this. And they end up doing, I think, more sophisticated things when you have a marketing automation system. And the other thing that happens is that you become a lot more accountable and a lot more clear about what your programs are actually bringing in, which often ends up happening. I think later on in this conversation, we'll probably talk about sales and marketing, because that's another favorite topic. But that's an important thing. How does a marketer do their job and prove that they're actually contributing to what the company is actually bringing in? And I'll talk more about that when that topic comes up.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I can dive in on this, but I'd be interested just, okay, so we've told you about ourselves, but just so I can get a sense of how to steer some of our answers and guidance, how many people are currently looking at a marketing automation tool right now but don't have one? Okay, how many actually have one in place? Okay, of those, how many are using Acton, Marketo, HubSpot, Eloqua, or some other? All right. So in my mind, marketing automation, obviously I'm not the vendor, I'm their client side, but for me it's two big buckets. It's lead scoring and lead nurturing. And so we can jump to the lead scoring slide, but neither of these have to be really intimidating. I mean, there are ways that you can, all of the solutions offer some aspect of this, and if they don't have these two things, they're probably not a marketing automation solution. So if you're not familiar with lead scoring, there are a bunch of reasons to do it, but one of the biggest ones is just to help prioritize. And so using the example here, this is a dating game, little screen, this is a photo from the 60s, but the idea is you have your salesperson, they're very eager and earnest, and they want to make deals, and then you have all these leads, but they have to go through their day asking a bunch of questions of people that they can't see often and don't have time to interact with all of them and tell the difference. So, given this slide, we have Biff here, who's likes long walks on sunset beaches, and he has a big budget, and he's ready to go, and so so he's a real good lead. So you're going to need your lead scoring to be able to tell that. There's, we call him Skippy. He's a contender. He doesn't quite have the budget or the timing. He's not reading all the content that the marketer is producing, but has long-term potential. And then you have the guy in the middle. Let's call him Richard. He's kind of wasting the salesperson's time, might be looking for a job, cruising through the website, kind of sending buying signals that are not as good. So you can't have the salesperson treat all these people the same. They're, especially in a B2B enterprise environment, the salespeople, their time is precious, and those deals are big, so you have to have them focus. And so you, in order to do that, you have them focus on leads that are the right fit, so demographic scoring, and we can drill down on that later during the panel. Or behavioral, which is kind of what they do. And so all of those are important. And then the other piece, which we won't cover as much today, but the other piece, which we have a slide on later if we want to cover it, but essentially lead nurturing. So as Atri was talking about, you have to take them all the way from when they have that first interaction with you, reading a blog post or just reading an email or just visiting the website as an anonymous visitor, and take them all the way through close and possibly even beyond through renewals and upsells. And all of those points have opportunities for you to automate those steps and make it easier for the marketer, at least have them be more targeted and do things they can't do manually, which isn't about, for your point, replacing people. It's about doing more and being more efficient about it. Yeah, go ahead.
So you guys mentioned that there's a lot of different tools to look at and those kind of things. And in the room, Hal did a little survey just to see what other people had. Where do we start?
Well, I mean, so this slide was generated more just to kind of, everybody can take a big breath and relax. This is a really good time to be a marketer. I mean, all of these companies up here this is just a small sample of what's out there, which I'll show you, but like well, let's go back one slide. So all of these companies, MailChimp is kicking ass right now. Acton has raised $30+ million. Marketo has raised, 70 something and has gone public. Eloqua got bought, went public, then got bought by Oracle for 890. Pardot got bought by ExactTarget, then got bought by Salesforce. HubSpot's raised big money. Neolane got bought by Adobe. And Infusionsoft has raised similar big rounds. So all of this leads to, that's not money in your pocket, but all of these vendors, no offense, are like fighting for your attention and are competing like crazy and are innovating all the time. So this is very good for you as a consumer, a B2B one, but like as a consumer, because you will benefit from all that competition. So the next kind of challenge of all that is this, if any of you have seen these Lumascapes, this is one just for the marketing area. So all of, you can see all these buckets of various types of functionality, and marketing automation is one small portion of that. So as a marketer, you can get overwhelmed quickly, especially if you're a small entrepreneur, smaller business. Where do you start with that? How do you sort through which tools to go through? So to help you sort through that today, and I'm happy to take any questions if somebody's in the middle of evaluating this, but here's a way to start thinking about it and provide some clarity around the market. And feel free to jump in or disagree.
Yeah, I think the thing is, what are your pain points, right? And in terms of what are you doing today, one thing that Hal didn't mention was multi-channel marketing. So, for example, we've got so many new channels. If you look at online, you've got email, which has been around for a while. You've got your website. You've got your social media channels, and that's just on one of them. Social media is multiple things. You have to do something on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. Being able to create campaigns, being able to do those types of activities. Let's just talk about demand generation. I'm not even going into the other things that we could do. You need to do them across these channels, and you need to measure how they're doing. You need to be able to figure out what's working, what's not working. That's what this thing does. And the question, when you're looking at, okay, what am I going to do in this area, you start small, I think, is the best way to go. And you expand as you go along. So that eye chart over there makes your head hurt because, where do you start with all of these different things? The easiest thing I would suggest is, start small. Everyone's probably got a website. So what are you doing on your website? How are you capturing leads there? How are you being able to follow up with them? How efficiently are you doing it? You're probably doing something with email. And you're probably, if you're not doing something in social, you're definitely thinking about it. And you're saying, how do I make something out of this? Because there's so much activity there. Those are the three simple things I would think about and say, okay, how do I put a program in place that gets me started there?
Yeah, so to add to that, this slide isn't generated to provide answers to you on which vendor do I pick, but it's more if you are an entrepreneur getting started, smaller, try some experiments early on, there are some great consumer-focused email tools that will get you a long way. And MailChimp being one of them, but there's a whole host of them. MyEmma has a local office, and then you have a lot of the other usual suspects. And some of these, like MailChimp is now starting to build out its Salesforce integration, so you're going to see more of that. So why I kind of left Salesforce in the middle, that's not the only CRM solution out there, but it's definitely the most dominant one as far as just attention and ecosystem. If you happen to have an app, whether that's a mobile app or a software product, there are a whole host of solutions that I've included here that are also geared around driving engagement. So it's not about a sales process, it's about how do I nurture these people so they activate, we acquire the lead, they sign up, they start using the application, they come back a second or third time. All of that's important with these tools. The one we'll spend the most time about is on this marketing automation layer, and we can go into more detail on it, but these vendors are kind of the critical ones in my mind. Various degrees of complexity around, if you drill down on the sub-functionality around nurturing, or how do you set up a program, or what kind of logic you need around that, or the reporting capabilities. And Atri will kind of take you through, not a demo, but just some of the Acton's view of how it accomplishes some of that. So any questions so far? Anybody struggling with some of these decisions, or we'll save it up? Go, Craig.
Yeah.
So in the case of software technology, I would go on Stack Exchange sites, to find out what's current and get a lot of people's expert opinions very quickly. In case of maybe legal questions or business strategy, I'd look on Quora.com. In the case of marketing automation tools, where would I look? Where are the public forums?
Well, what kind of information are you seeking? Like
Just
vendor opinions, or just
people
how to get it
exchanging
done?
people
or?
exchanging opinions about what works for them for particular problems. Are there any such forums?
I think there are several. I mean, all the major analyst companies are now following marketing automation. And a lot of this is public, so you'll be able to find stuff in Forrester. Gartner obviously covers for the enterprise side. I would say that Salesforce.com has done a good job. They've got a site called App Exchange, and that's an area where they have all these applications that companion applications that work with Salesforce. You'll find a lot of quite active discussion and reviews and things like that going on there. There's another site called G2 Crowd, which is a crowdsourced sort of like review site where people review things, sort of the Yelp for, I guess, business and marketing users. That's another area that you can find it. There's a fair amount of sort of, I would say, grassroots and public domain material out there that is quite easily accessible.
But it depends on what you're trying to get done. I mean, if you're trying to interact with a bunch of users, then obviously there are tons of LinkedIn groups. I mean, any of these vendors listed up there have, there is a Marketo user group in Portland that, so that you can attend if you want, or there's, I'm sure, Act-On equivalents throughout the country, and even if you can't attend the Silicon Valley one, you can join and interact and ask questions, so there's that angle.
Yeah, Marketing Masters on LinkedIn. There's a group there, Marketing Masters on LinkedIn, across the board, different participants, different companies.
But if it's strictly educational, I mean, all of these vendors, including Act-On, do a pretty fantastic job of educating, subscribe to all their blogs, even if you perceive that vendor XYZ is out of your range of being able to afford. It doesn't mean you can't learn a ton from their blog, their social channels, and all that. So absorb it all.
Yeah. And for independent reviews, David Rabb wrote a Rabb guide, usually every year, that he updates, and he goes through some of the top vendors in the list too. So it's paid, but you can still read his blog, and so he'll talk about a lot of different things in there as well. So Atri, we talked a little bit about Act-On, but I also just want to talk about the sales and marketing.
Yeah, this I can't remember now why we put this slide up, but let's go back to that because I think this is important. If we go back to the previous slide, because we sort of talked about this, right? Which is that during the conversation about marketing automation and what it's about, this is what people use it for today. It's called basically leads to revenue management, right? How do you bring leads in and help walk them down that process to make them more qualified till they become an opportunity? I'll actually ask everyone a question here, which is, what's your definition of a lead? I mean, you can ask something as simple as that. How many of you guys are responsible for lead generation over here? Okay. Can someone tell me what their definition of a lead is? I'll repeat it so that we don't have to have the mic go to you. So a prospect that's a little further along than just a dumb name, right? To just paraphrase it. Yeah. And then you have a qualification. So something as simple as this. How many of us have been in a room? I'm a marketer. I've been a marketer for over 20 years with a sales leader, and there's an argument about whether the leads were good quality or not good quality. How many people have been in that situation? Okay. So one of the simplest things that this thing will help you do is establish some definitions of what a lead is, what makes a lead a lead. You come up with that definition and you codify it. And then you walk it through. What is a marketing lead? For a marketing person, what's considered a lead? What interaction have they had so that you call it a lead? And then how do you work it through the process? Hal talked a little bit about lead nurturing and things like that. How do you basically develop it so that they take more action and they become more qualified along the way? See, the whole buyer's journey has changed completely over the web. People do, 80% of their research before they call anyone. before they call up a vendor or a service provider, they've already done all this research. We've done it. Who's bought a car by going to the dealer first? You first go to Kelly's Blue Book, you go to Edmunds, you do all the research, and then you go to the dealer and you tell them what you're willing to pay them. Same thing. Same thing is happening. This is what marketing automation helps you do, right? Which is engage with people as they're going through that buyer's journey and helping them get more and more qualified. Eventually, you get something that is a sales qualified lead and you can give it to a salesperson. And the beauty of all of this is that now as a marketer, you've established some criteria of what happens to that particular lead before they get ready for sales. What have they done? We've talked about demographics and firmographics, but you also talk about behavioral profiles. What have they gone through? And we'll talk more about that. But the whole concept of working them through this. Before marketing automation came along, we had so-called CRM systems, which are a complete misnomer for a CRM. CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management, but CRM systems are basically Salesforce automation systems for the most part. What do? They take care of an opportunity, taking an opportunity and making it into a customer. The workflow that a salesperson has to go through when they get an opportunity and they say that person is ready to buy and work them through that process till they buy. But nothing is done before then. So for a marketer, the best way to look at this is that all the stuff that happens right until something becomes an opportunity is in the domain of the marketer. And then after that, it really becomes the domain of the salesperson in a B2B environment. So that's a long explanation, but essentially it talks about, sort of the stages that a buyer goes through and how you interact with them as a marketer in the new buyer's journey. And then, all the different things that you'll do along the way. This is essentially what people do today with marketing automation. And we're just scratching the surface. I mean, because of all the changes that we've talked about, the access to technology, the new buyer's journey, all of that sort of stuff. This is where this is.
And I would add to that, I just don't want to risk, since there are a bunch of people that aren't even looking at marketing automation tools, but may be looking to automate their marketing, that these exercises that he's talking about are valuable to you, even if you're just a solo entrepreneur. I mean, you should be asking these. I mean, it might make you a little schizophrenic to go, "How are the leads today? I don't know. I'm unhappy with how you're performing." But that's kind of your role as a solo entrepreneur, and so you should be asking yourself these same questions, like, "What is a lead? What is a good lead? How do I know I'm spending my precious dollars, which you have even fewer in that environment, and how do you know that be honest with yourself that not everybody that walks in the door is worthy of your time," back to the original slide on the lead scoring, to be able to do that. And even if you're not ready to invest in a marketing automation tool, it's worth having that discussion if you are big enough to have more than one person doing these roles, because it very much helps with alignment between the two functions. No longer can they just point fingers and say, "You're not giving me enough leads," and you can point fingers at them and go, "Well, I'm just going to put up an order form and you can go away." Instead, you can really get aligned around, these are the objectives of this company. You have a common vocabulary on what the expectations are, and there's no games anymore. And if they say you don't have enough leads, you can go to the marketing automation tool or your email system and go, "We said a good lead is defined by this. Here's how many I generated for you. What is your problem?" And base it on facts and have real discussions from that perspective. So, I mean, we could have a whole, we can have a whole session on just lead scoring and how to pull that off, but we'll save that for Q&A if you want.
So what about the reporting that's available in some of the systems? I know you maybe walk through an example of Act On and some of the capabilities that you would offer, but then...
Yeah, if you click one more, I'll just, I think this is pretty straightforward. This is a build that, essentially this is a dashboard of kind of like what a typical online marketing system, not just Act On, but a variety of the leading players have all of these capabilities, all the different channels that you want to interact with potential prospects, with email and landing pages and social and so on. Inbound, search engine optimization, etc. Those are all things that you're doing in marketing automation. Keep going, Troy. If you go to the next one, so this is my build. We can get past all of this. But essentially, Troy asked me about reports. This is the holy grail, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter a hill of beans unless you can actually measure some of this stuff and figure out where you're doing well, where you're not doing well, and how do you make it better. And it's an iterative process. None of this stuff happens in day one, no matter what tool you get. In fact, we often advise clients, and I'm sure Hal does the same thing, is that if you don't have someone, at least designated to using something, if it's going to be a part-time activity for everyone, doesn't matter what tool or what application you get, it's not going to be successful. So, and thereby the whole reporting thing comes into this. So one very simple thing is, how's my lead to revenue report going? What does it look like? So for those of you who can't read this at the back, I'll read it out. The top part looks at, this is actual reporting data that comes from our system, from our own marketing practice, which we use inside the company. It talks about the new leads that were generated, right? So we do a lot of different marketing programs, and it outlines, where did those leads come from? We do surveys, we do website, people coming to our website, we do various types of webinars and things like that. So that's where the origination, where the leads come from. The next one looks at which ones converted into opportunities. So which became an opportunity that the salesperson said that's an opportunity. So there's a whole process that goes in between which talks about, nurturing that lead and qualifying them. But typically, we have our own method of figuring out what an opportunity is. Typically, you go and see whether, there are many methods, but we use the budget, authority, need, time frame type of questions and say, this person is ready to buy, they have a budget, they are a real opportunity. I think I can close this deal. That's a sales function. That's an opportunity. So look at where those leads came from. How many of those leads became opportunities? So now as a marketer, I can look at my marketing channels and see how they converted. And then finally, how many of those opportunities closed? This is typically what you want to do. This is where a sales group and a marketing group will work together and say, this is my lead to revenue report. And then at the bottom there, you can look at individual campaign performance. Each campaign I did, how did that contribute to the generation of opportunities and eventually the generation of closed deals? So this is the kind of sort of like the full feedback that you can get. Now, you look at this, you do this once and you say, you know what, this doesn't make sense. We're spending too much money here. Or I don't understand why these webinars are not performing. Or whatever it is, you'll come up with questions and you'll try to answer those questions, but it'll give you a dashboard to look at what's happening, which you can then iterate on and measure. And that's sort of like the essence of reporting here. I mean, there's sort of so many different types of reports you can generate. I often talk about the fact that it's not about big data. In marketing, we generate a lot of data. The question is, what's the right data? What do you need to measure? Ask the questions. What are you trying to measure? Because there's so much stuff there. If you go data diving, you'll never come out of that. So just a little thing.
So reporting all looks nice, but what can go wrong, Hal?
Let's lay on the couch. And I mean, there are a host of different things, and some of these can be before you even buy the tool. But and the reporting is actually a great segue for this. So one of the things is just don't underestimate how messy the process can be transitioning from not having a tool to having one. It sounds, and people who aren't having to live in this tool, how quickly they will go with getting the religion on data, marketing is now science, I want to report. And there's a lot of steps in between. I mean, one of the biggest ones, which I have in the middle here, is you need to be obsessed about clean data and keeping those salespeople in line on keeping it up to date. Because if you don't, all your fancy reports are not going to matter. So you've got to be just militant about that. That said, you're never going to have perfect information, so you can't get so obsessive that you're getting therapy over your marketing automation tool. One other aspect is just back to the reporting. You can almost measure too much, if it, and it gets too, well, there's an easy report for this, there's an easy report for that. If it's not changing your behavior, you possibly don't need to measure it. You may need to do it to kind of do some vanity metrics thing, or you may need to do it for some stakeholders in the organization, but the ones that you're driving your marketing organization on, that should be a pretty tight number to go through. Feel free to jump in. I'm sure.
No, this all makes sense.
Not enough content. So as Atri mentioned, you build this fabulous machine. Marketers may be doing a good job, but once that machine is live, there is an unending need for new content to feed into it, because now you can target people down to a very specific level. I want all the people that have, I want all the BIFs of the world that have big budgets, the right program, have been reading all our stuff, and I'm going to send them a very specific asset or email. Well, somebody has to write that email, and somebody has to write that ebook. And the more targeted you get, the more successful it's going to be. But that also means, as a marketer, either you or your team is going to have to generate all that content, and you can never keep up. So that's one thing that's ongoing for all my clients and even when I've been client side.
So before you go any deeper, what
Yeah.
would be a report that everybody should have from both of you guys?
Well, I mean, there's the obvious candidates. I mean, you need to know where things are coming from so that you can know where you're spending your dollars and where you should be spending more dollars and fewer dollars. I mean, those are kind of just basic level things, but a lot of the specifics at the next level would be related to your business.
So let's get tactical though. Is that number of opens on an email? Is that all the different sources of marketing campaigns, those kind of things?
I mean, most of the environments I've been in, the nuclear option metric is pipeline. Like you are measured on how much pipeline. You are not responsible for closing the deals, but you are responsible for helping to generate pipeline. And you can obsess about, well, this program generated this many leads and multi-attribution and get all twisted up about that. But if you say, as a marketing organization, we spend X dollars, and those dollars led to hopefully a 10X number, in pipeline, you're going to get all the toys you want, all the promotions you want, everything else, because it's all measurable and you've had a huge impact. There are obviously shades of gray in between there.
Of course, Hal, one important thing with pipeline generation is that's a sales function, right? Pipeline is opportunity pipeline. So if the guy who's there to ask the questions finally on the phone or whatever it is not asking the right questions, they could not be generating. So the other aspect of that is that then you look at, how many people are interacting and downloading white papers and what's their lead score? And you're saying, wait a minute, I generated 5,000 leads that had a score over 40, but only 10 of them actually became an opportunity. There's something wrong here. Now you have to debug that one. Is it the process? Are they just a bunch of people who are coming and downloading white papers for no reason because you're giving them some incentive like a Starbucks card to do that? Or is it because the people who are creating the opportunities are not doing a good job? Maybe they need some training or whatever it is. I mean, it's things like that. I mean, there's no science, there's no right answer. I mean, you have to figure it out and you have to debug the problem. But one thing you do have is you have a bunch of data that you can then look at and say, what's happening? You have to, diagnose the problem.
As we fling our speakers everywhere. But also the nurturing and all that applies too during the sales cycle. So maybe there's an opportunity there that marketing should be doing more of that pre-qual activity. And even if you're split up where you have closers and you have your sales development reps, which is true for some of my clients and it works well, you may still have to figure out where does marketing get involved in that. And it shouldn't just be marketing flings the lead over the wall and then sales touches it and marketing never has another hand. Marketing's involvement, these tools, these programs can also help compress your sales cycle. You can help them close deals faster, which leads to happy CEOs and happy salespeople, which is something to watch out for. Other just caveats, I'll cover a couple more. Silver bullet mentality. All of these tools are fabulous, but watch out for other people on the team kind of expecting well, I just wrote this check, and so now leads and dollars and pipeline are just going to fall from the sky, and we're going to get that tomorrow. That's just not the reality. That again, back to the messy process. So all of these related, and also just the platform is just one piece of the challenge here. So you got to address the people issues. You got to have programs in place, and you got to have some processes like the enforcement or even just how does sales properly process your precious lead that you paid good money for that has now been nurtured over time by you as a marketer now should get equivalent treatment from a salesperson. And so there better be some good process in place to take them all the way through. And so all of that, that's kind of part of why I had that messy process thing. I mean, all of this leads to a lot of complexity. You can get through it, it just takes time.
So you guys have mentioned, both of you, a lot about this lead scoring idea. What is it? Why? When should I do it?
So lead scoring is, I think if you're generating leads, you should be scoring them somehow, because it's a two-dimensional problem. It's not generating a bunch of leads on its own, but you have to figure out how do you figure out what the quality of those leads are, and lead scoring is a way to be able to quantify the quality of the leads in the context of your business. So we talked about demographic and firmographic information. This, for example, what's the title of the person, what industry are they from, etc. These are demographic, firmographic pieces of information that you need to factor into your lead scoring, because your salespeople saying, I want to talk to this title person, or I want to talk to someone in healthcare, etc. But the other aspect of it is the behavioral piece of it, which is what have they done? How have they shown their intent, their interest in you? And both those things are very important, and that's what you should factor into the lead scoring that you're going to do. And for each individual company, each of your businesses, the lead scoring algorithm is going to be slightly different. Certain things are going to be more important to you, certain things are going to be less important to you. And now you can weigh that, and you can put that in, and you can create a model. And all the tools, including Acton, let you do this. Let you create a lead scoring model that you can then apply to these leads. And it gives you that second dimension, not just quantity, but also the quality dimension.
And for those of us that have had these tools for a while, how do you refine that over time?
Refine the scoring? Or, I mean, that's where some of the science comes in. I mean, eventually you have some data to look at, and you can say, okay, let's look at how we were scoring these leads, which ones actually made it in the pipeline, and were we over under on that? Are we having leads that got poor scores, but because the salesperson went rogue and called them anyway and ended up closing the deal? Well, maybe that should have been a good lead, in which case, why? What's the attribute that should have been scored to reflect that reality? Or vice versa, where you're sending us all these leads that are scoring highly, but there's some factor in there that is missing, that's not getting, because scoring does not necessarily need to be a positive attribute. You can have, there is the notion of negative scoring. I don't want people from X country, give them negative 50 points so that the salespeople don't have to bother with that. The other piece I would say on the scoring is, well, obviously you have to be practical. I mean, if you have a low volume of leads, don't sit there and obsessing about your scoring. Go generate some leads and then worry about scoring them. But soon thereafter, hopefully you can have your discussion about how to make that better. But the other thing I want to encourage, and if we get to the trends topic, this would be one of the trends I would put on there. Scoring, I would call it scoring rather than just lead scoring, even though I had my slide on that, because the scoring helps you for cross-sell, upsell, nurturing, account management, kind of farming activities that are traditionally not about bringing the lead in. It's more, how do we get more revenue out of this account? And so even though you have a demographic score and a behavior score, you can actually have a renewability score. You can have whatever you want to call it, you can score it and add to it from there. So then your account managers can look and say, okay, if they're going to renew on their subscription, we expect these behaviors. They are, adding this many things to their account, they've invited this many people, etc. Well, all of those could be scoreable, and when it's time to renew 3 months ahead of time, they could get a snapshot and go, this guy's at risk of not renewing. What can we do to help his adoption so that he does renew? Or this guy's a layup where he's totally gonna renew because he's scoring highly. So scoring has multi-purposes, and I think you'll see that a lot more, especially as people have gotten over the hump of implementing these tools. You'll see a lot more of this application of the technology downstream.
So before we get into some of the trends, I just want to open up to any questions that might have in the audience. So is there anybody that's got an immediate question, or we'll dive? Okay.
Well, in general, I mean, just like no different than, yeah, what does talent shortage mean? So I didn't cover that on the slide. So developers in hot demand, great, but marketers are too, especially ones that have these skills. So like they're all of these vendors, have 2,000 plus something customers. Well, that's a pretty finite population. And so even if you say that there's a certain number of people at each of those installations, that's not a huge talent pool to draw into. So you kind of have to grow it organically and hope that your internal team it takes this on. I mean, if I was somebody coming out with college, this would be a no-brainer to kind of pick up these skills, because you're going to add 10, 20, 30K to your salary pretty quickly by just knowing how to operate the system. And that's not talking about the larger process and people issues, but just operating the tool. And not because it's complex, it's just not, that talent, that knowledge is not widely distributed at this point.
Yeah, like I can just give an anecdotal example would be our clients in the last 3 weeks. I've had 3 different clients ask us, do I know anybody that is in marketing operations that they can hire? I saw, which I don't know if he's still here, Mike Willis was walking around with, ask me about my marketing operations job that I have open. So he was handing out the job description here. So it is a hot time for these folks.
I would definitely agree with that. We could, at Acton, we'll hire anyone who's got experience in marketing automation. either in the marketing department or in our client services department, because to teach our customers how to do it better.
So where do you guys see this industry going?
You want me to take that?
Yeah, go for it. I'll jump in later.
So where do we see this industry going? So I've been in this technology business for a long time, and so I've seen a lot of different waves of things. I used to be the first product manager at a company called Clarify, which was back in the client server days. It was a customer service and support management company that then morphed into a CRM company, went public, it got bought by Nortel, the Canadian telephone company. Clarify used to compete against Siebel and Vantiv, and there were a bunch of companies in that space. And that was back in the early 90s. And that was front office CRM. And we've gone through these different waves of things where, the Clarifys of the world have come and gone, the Siebel has come and gone, and the cloud SaaS applications have come in. I think the whole area, this whole front office management area of, interacting with prospects and customers and things is here to stay. As long as we're doing business, this category is here. So the way I look at this, Troy, is that, I mentioned the new buying cycle and sort of like the whole process of how things have changed on the internet and how people are approaching purchasing things and all has changed completely. There's a lot of potential here. We're barely scratching the surface. And if you look at it, we often talk about, sort of the Fortune 500 or the Fortune, 1000, and that's a small universe. If you look at all of the other businesses that could use this type of technology to become more efficient and do it worldwide, it's tremendous. So this whole area has a lot of innovation left in it. We're basically scratching the surface. We're talking about lead scoring and lead nurturing and all these sort of things. We're not even talking about things like beyond what happens when a customer becomes a customer. How do you do loyalty building? How do you do those types of programs? Hal alluded to it a little bit when he talked about, when you have to get a renewal of a customer, what do you do? What types of things do you look at? How do you expand that customer? How do you make them, an advocate for you? And at every step of the way, the marketer needs to touch that. In some industries, they're pretty far ahead. The airline industry is pretty far ahead in some of these things, but the rest of us are not. And so there's a tremendous, if I look at it, the problem from that standpoint, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for being able to use these types of things to be able to do innovative things. We're not doing it yet. I mean, most people are not doing it yet, and all of that is an open area. So for all of us marketers out there, there's a tremendous opportunity to think about new ways of applying the solutions.
I mean, we can jump, like it'll help if we show the slide. I mean, we've talked about the downstream nerd, go past that, I guess.
Yeah, we can go past all of this.
Yeah, go to the next one. There's nothing. I'll just talk through it. Okay, so downstream nurturing, we talked about that already. Not just about leads, about farming. Another trend that you're seeing out there, platforms and marketplaces. So everybody from Acton just announced their Apex, the Acton Partner Exchange, of which Response Capture is also a member. And you're seeing this for all the vendors. So it's not that they're imitating Salesforce, but that is a good pattern to follow. Have an app exchange type thing, provide these vendors, and that's also why the selection process it gets overwhelming because it's not just a marketing automation tool, it's all these other pieces that should integrate with that in your CRM. So one of the other trends, that I would talk about is roll your own. So you're not just making one decision, you're having to pick your flavor. So we don't have the slide here, but it was kind of like the burrito analogy at Chipotle. Okay, you kind of have a standard set of ingredients, but everybody can riff on that in their own certain way. So you may choose a marketing automation platform, and one person may choose Wistia as their video provider. Another person may choose Vidyard, and you got to mix and match all along the way. So you're making a lot of decisions. The nice part is, they're all doing this marketplace thing, so it can help you out there. And then the last one is just, as I alluded to on one of the first slides, just the IPOs and acquisitions and all of that. This is a shifting marketplace. You're going to see things happen to Eloqua post-acquisition. You're going to see things happen to Pardot. And it doesn't necessarily mean bad, but in some cases, you could see less innovation in certain ways. In some cases, you may see more innovation because then they have deeper pockets to play with. So all of this, the state of the market right now will be very different in 12 months, just because all of these vendors, in a good way, are growing at triple-digit rates, and that's, again, good for you as a marketer, but you got to keep up with it.
We have a question from the live stream audience. Kevin Long asked, can you explain drip campaigns, and what is an example of a simple drip campaign that all small businesses should implement?
Great plug, Kevin. I was actually going to go there, so thanks for tuning in.
You want to?
Yeah, I can try that first. Yeah, you know, you're plain vanilla, but still very effective. It's just a 3-step nurture. Somebody signs up for something, you know, to get an ebook or some asset. You deliver the asset in the first email. You provide some additional resources. You have a call to action on, you know, hitting up your product, and all of that is helpful. So, I mean, the nurturing can get very complex very quickly, but just kind of blocking and tackling. I mean, you can pull basic nurturing off, even if you're the solo schizophrenic entrepreneur. You can do that with MailChimp has autoresponders, Campaign Monitor has autoresponders. That doesn't mean these are equivalent marketing automation tools, but you can still tap into some of that power and do a nurture. Somebody signed up for your newsletter, boom, 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 and set the time interval and what they get sent, and you can track it all along the way.
Slightly more complex version of that would be, say, I think most of us do webinars now. So that's a common way of reaching out to people. You can do a webinar, invite people to the webinar, remind them. If they attend, do something. If they don't attend, send them a separate message, maybe with some other content, like, for example, the slides that they didn't see, etc. So that would be an example of sort of like doing a slightly more complicated campaign, but in the context of what people actually did, whether they attended the webinar or they didn't attend the webinar. There's even more variations of that. You can even find out when people dropped off. We've done integrations with WebEx and Citrix and so on, where you can actually see when someone came to the webinar and after 25 minutes they dropped off. You can send them a message saying, we noticed that you dropped off in 25 minutes and you missed this part, or something like that, you know, but you can get pretty complex with that. Well, that would be an example of, you know, slightly more sophisticated campaign.
We'll go ahead and repeat your question.
Unless Kevin has 5 more that he wants to add.
So my question is around YouTube and videos. It seems like people are advocating like a blended video distribution channel strategy where you're using a little bit of YouTube, but also potentially other Lucia or other ways to plug into marketing automation. My question is, what are the metrics from video that should be in this marketing automation? What type of audience engagement or view counts? It seems like video seems to be this thing that's not very well integrated into things out of the box at this point.
I think, let me just take that. I think the video analogy is similar to, I think, the webinar one in a lot of different ways. You want to see, you know, how much engagement there's been. Video is actually really good because, you know, people don't read as much anymore. I mean, that's just a general trend. So campaigns that have video in them have much better response rates. I mean, we're looking at this across our customer base, and we're seeing that. One of the reasons we opened up our platform is that so that we can better integrate with various types of video systems, and we've got REST APIs that will enable you to do that. And the whole idea there is that, you know, you've got access to different types of parameters that you want to measure on the video, and integrate that into your data store, so you know about what they've done. So that's just my take at it. The way we look at it is very similar to sort of like how we look at, say, webinars as an example, and what we want to do them.
And I would add, I mean, on an individual, call it content side, you know, a single video, you're still probably going to lean on that tool to see the nice little heat map that Wisty or the Vineyard provides, so that you can see, okay, how do I optimize this video so it's a better experience? You still can lean on the core tool. As it relates to marketing automation, though, the interesting part in my mind on the integration is now you can see that person A got 30 seconds into it, person B got 60 seconds into it. It's not just a, you know, you can't do that on a PDF on an ebook to go, oh, okay, they got to page 5. You know, with video and these tools integrated, you know, that gets pretty compelling, especially if they are consuming more video content.
One more quick question. Kevin made sure that I will not go over 7:30, so I think the panelists will stay up for a little bit longer. So please go ahead.
Well, this is related. What about infographics? It seems like we've been saturated with those. I think they're kind of a cool visual tool, but is that kind of waning now, the use of that? There's so many out there.
So the question was, what about infographics and the use of them in the marketing automation?
I think it'll continue. I mean, obviously it gets abused by some people where it's like, oh, you gave me this nice little chart and not a whole lot of value. I think you'll see some of the volume of the infographics decrease and hopefully the quality increase along the way. I mean,
I think
it's more aspirational.
I think an infographic in a context of something bigger is very useful. So we found that, and we try to encourage people if they're doing content creation, is the infographic should just not necessarily stand on its own, but it should maybe have a little narrative next to it, and it makes it into a nice story. Because at the end of the day, what you're trying to do with an infographic is you're trying to educate someone. So if it's not serving the purpose of that education, and a lot of the infographics have become more about the style and design and a bunch of things on there, what is the storyline? What exactly are you trying to say? And sometimes the narrative is nicer. And we talk about, even if you just create a simple blog post and use that infographic along with that blog post, you've got the whole story there. So.
Infographics are essentially a delivery mechanism. I mean, you should have a larger theme, campaign, educational content, and infographics are just one way of expressing that. A webinar is another way, an ebook is another, and all of those, back to the challenge of the marketing content, come up with, now you can focus on coming up with cool programs and campaigns and then slice and dice and repurpose like crazy so that you can use an infographic. It shouldn't be in isolation.
Thank you both. Hot time to be a marketer. Great tools out there. Exciting times as an industry. Things are changing fast. So appreciate your guys' participation today. Thank you very much. Just a couple quick announcements. There is actually next Thursday, we're going to take a deep dive into this topic around metrics and marketing and what matters for sales in a leadership roundtable. So we'll have two presenters, Randy Weber and Mitchell from Zapproved. They'll go through it 7:30 tomorrow morning, and then also, or next Thursday morning, and then also we have the next Innovation in Motion panel on Get Big Data with business intelligence tools. So as Skip mentioned earlier, that'll be the next event. Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks for Puppet Labs for having us, and thanks all you for coming tonight. After hours party is on deck, so if you want to go over there, we'll hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thanks.